Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you on this, the first day of fall 2019. What do you think about that? Finally, cooler weather is here, and soon those daytime temps are going to plunge into the low 90s. I took a little bit of chill just thinking about it. I want to start a new sermon series this morning. And most of you know that I love the great stories that are found in the Bible. In particular, I love stories about people. And the Bible is filled with stories about men and women whom God must have wanted us to get to know. And I want us to use the Bible for the next several weeks to get to know one of my favorite Bible characters. I want us to get to know a man who's helped me through a lot of long, lonely, difficult days. I want us to get to know a man named Joseph. If you're wondering what the title of the series is, it's going to amaze you. The creative ability that resides within your pastor. And but I'm entitling the series Joseph. How's that? I know some of you thinking, okay, Ronnie, what's my incentive here? This is probably going to take several weeks. You might be wondering, what's my incentive? Why in the world would I want to come Sunday after Sunday and get to know this man named Joseph? He's going to help you. He's going to help you in all the ways I'm sure that he has helped me. If you were raised in a dysfunctional home, and that dysfunctional environment damaged you, Joseph's going to help you overcome that. If you've been through some experience in your life that was so traumatic that it literally changed the course of your life, you will relate to Joseph, and he's going to help you. If you find yourself back at square one, having to start all over, I promise you, Joseph can show you how to do that. If you feel that God has called you to something, to do something, and then just left you hanging, that Joseph's going to show you what to do. If you're reeling from the pain of rejection, Joseph can show you some steps that you can take that will help you heal. If you're growing tired of waiting on God, Joseph can help you become patient. If you're someone's target and they're slandering you, Joseph can help you deal with that. If you feel abandoned, forgotten, and alone, Joseph will show you how to cope. If you're being bombarded with temptation, well, Joseph was an expert at resisting temptation. If you find yourself holding a grudge against someone and growing bitter, Joseph's going to show you how to fix that. If you've come to a place in your life where God makes absolutely no sense at all, then you and Joseph are going to have a lot in common. If you want to make a difference, a real difference in your world, well, I want to introduce you to a man that did. So, are you ready to get to know Joseph?
Yes.
Good. Here's his story. Let's start by reading a few verses from the Old Testament book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 1 through 4. The Bible says, "So Jacob settled in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner." This is the account, or the story, of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some, not all, you see this, some of the bad things his brothers were doing. Key sentence coming up. Jacob loved Joseph. Did you see that? Jacob loved Joseph. And how did he love him? He loved him more than any of his other children. Why was that? Because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob made for Joseph a beautiful robe. If you've read the King James Version, you remember the coat of many colors. That's what he's talking about here. Made him a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated their dad because he loved Joseph more than them. Is that what they said? But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. And they couldn't say a kind word to him. Verse 2 says, this is the account of Jacob and his family. When we read that verse, I know that many of you thought, Ronnie, I thought you were going to tell us the story of Joseph. Well, I am. But Joseph's story is best understood when told in the context of Jacob's story. So just who was Jacob? Give me a minute and I'll tell you his story. Jacob was the grandson of a man named Abraham and the son of a man named Isaac. Both of those men were powerful men, wealthy men, who also shared a relationship with God. Jacob was born with a gift that served him well over the course of his life. He was a gifted con man. He was gifted at tricking people out of what they had so that he ended up with it. As a matter of fact, his name, Jacob, means deceiver. He used this gift to trick his brother Esau into giving him a lot of things that were of great value. And when Esau recognized what had happened, he made a vow. As soon as my father lies cold in the grave, I'm going to kill Jacob. Was he kidding around? Oh, no. He was serious. When Jacob learned that his life, that he was in danger, he fled. He left and he went to a region called Haran, where he moved in with and began to work for his uncle Laban. Now Laban had 2 daughters. Now you hang with me. You hanging with me? Because we're going somewhere. You got to know this. Laban had 2 daughters. The older was named Leah. And according to the Bible, she was easy to overlook. She wasn't necessarily homely, but she certainly wasn't beautiful. As a matter of fact, her name could mean either dull or cow. Either way, it wasn't good. You got me? You with me? Now, he had a second daughter, a younger daughter named Rachel. The Bible said, this according to Hodge translation, it was almost impossible to overlook Rachel. The Bible said she had a great figure. And a lovely face. Think about that. Oh, you couldn't overlook her. Jacob fell madly in love with Rachel. So one day he and Uncle Laban are talking about his wages, and he said, I tell you what, Uncle. And you say, so he married his first cousin? Yes. You say, can you explain that? No, I can't. I have no idea why they did that. That's what he did. So the time anyway, he said, Uncle Laban, at some point you got to pay me. I've been thinking about what I would like. I'm willing to work 7 years for you, and all you got to give me in exchange is Rachel to be my wife. Laban said, that's a deal. The Bible said that Jacob loved Rachel so much that the 7 years seemed as a day. Next thing he knew, man, it's his wedding day. And then it was his wedding night. And on the morning after his wedding night, Jacob woke up and received the surprise of his life. He turned over in the bed to put his arm around his beloved Rachel, and guess who was lying in the bed with him? It wasn't Rachel, it was Leah. You say, how'd that happen? There again, I can't explain it, but I suspect that alcohol may have played some part in what had taken place. Jacob got dressed and he went to Laban and he said, I demand an explanation. And Laban said, whoa, 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 big boy. In our culture, it is not our custom that the younger daughter would marry before the older. Now, did Laban give a hoot about their customs? No, 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 no. The deceiver had been deceived. Laban went on to explain, oh, I'll give you Rachel as your wife. Matter of fact, I'll let you marry her as soon as your honeymoon with Leah is over. But you got to give me another 7 years of work. You see, wait, it was a deception. It was a trick. Jacob said, yes. Finishes his honeymoon with Leah. And then Leah attends her husband's wedding. And watches her husband marry her sister. Now, I want you to see this. This is messed up. You got it? Because some of you are thinking, is this biblical? Can you do this? This is messed up. So he marries Rachel. So now, a week ago he was a bachelor. Now he's got 2 wives. And they're sisters. He's married sisters. Y'all didn't laugh at that. Can you? I can't help but feel sorry for Leah. She had to feel like a fifth. She is married to a man who's married to her sister, who loves her sister but doesn't love her. That's what the Bible said. He didn't love her. So she has to be around them when they're laughing together, giggling together. I love you more. No, I love you more. She has to hear all that junk. And the Bible said that she was miserable. She was unhappy. So God saw her unhappiness and He enabled her to conceive. She gave birth to a son. And then God enabled her to conceive again. And she gave birth to a second son, then a third son, then a fourth son. I'm telling you, man, she was spitting kids out like a Pez dispenser. Some of you know what that is. Man, I can say that. I want to. My crowd's not going to know. They're Googling it. Some of you knew what that was. And what's happening is, now Rachel's becoming miserable because she couldn't conceive. And so here's Jacob. He's going to Lamaze classes for years. They're decorating the nurseries. He's helping bathe the kids and put them down at night. You know what? She's upset. So she came up with an idea. She went and got one of her servant girls, a woman named Bilhah. And she went to Jacob and said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start sleeping with her. So that hopefully we can have a family together as she has children. Now, you got to think about this. Oh, Jacob, he's already sleeping with 2 women. Right? Can we talk like this in the church? If this is wrong, then don't read your Bible because it's all in there. She said, here's what, you're going to start sleeping with her. Can you imagine what Jacob said? Now, honey, that wouldn't be right. You're asking me to do something wrong. And no, he was a weak-willed man, right? She said, I'd love you to start having sex with her. And Jacob must have said, if it will make you happy, I'll do that. Start sleeping with a third woman. She conceived, gave birth to a son. Then she conceived, gave birth to another son. Well, in the meantime, Leah has stopped conceiving, so she sees what's going on. Now this all-out baby war has broken out. These women are now competing against one another for Jacob's attention and his affection. So she goes and gets a servant girl named Zilpah. She goes to Jacob and said, now you're going to do with her what you've been doing with Bilhah, and we're going to have children through her. So he goes, all right. He starts now sleeping with 4 different women. Is that messed up? Yes. Hey, this is messed up. It's messed up. Zilpah conceives, gives birth to a son. Zilpah conceives, gives birth to another son. Now you see the scoreboard, 4, 2, 2, Rachel 0. Next thing you know, Leah becomes fertile myrtle again. She conceives, gives birth to another son, then another son, then another daughter. So think that you're 12 to 15 years into the marriage. Jacob's now got 4 wives, 11 kids. When all of a sudden this is what the Bible said, God remembered Rachel's plight. And He answered her prayer. She's been praying. I think every conception it has a degree of the miraculous about it, but her conception was a miracle of God. She was barren, physically incapable of conceiving, and God did something miraculous, and she conceived, and she gave birth to a son, and she named him Joseph. Now we're kind of slipping into his story. You ready? For the next 6 years after Joseph was born, Jacob became a wealthy man. I'll give you one guess as to how he amassed his fortune. He tricked his uncle out of it. He literally robbed him blind. Laban's sons figured it out, and Jacob figured out that they had figured it out, and he knew, my life is in jeopardy. So one night he told his wives, all 4 of them, get the kids, pack everything we've got. He told his servants, round up all the herds, we're going to make a run for it tonight, because if I stay another day, I'm going to be killed. So in the middle of the night, they fled for Jacob's life. I couldn't help but wonder this week as I read that, what impact would that have had on 6-year-old Joseph? When you jerk him out of the bed, you tell him to put his clothes on, get everything you've got. We're leaving. Can you imagine Joseph saying, is Grandpa coming? No, Grandpa ain't coming. Why is Grandpa not coming? Because Grandpa is mad at your daddy. Mad enough that if he catches him, he's going to kill him. Drama. You seeing this? Drama. They run for their lives. Word gets out that Laban is coming with a group of men. Of course, the Bible says Laban was coming to kill him. But before he could kill him, God spoke to Laban and said, you better leave Jacob alone. So they survived. They're on their way. That's okay. Sid's getting a call. He's going to take care of that for us. They're on their way to Jacob's homeland. Jacob's estranged brother, whom he had robbed, found out that they're coming, put together an army of 400, and sets out to meet them. What do you think Jacob and all the crowd, how did they interpret that? They interpret that when he comes here, he's not just going to kill Jacob. He's going to kill us all. How would that have impacted 6-year-old Joseph? Jacob did something that night. It really, truly just kind of demonstrated something that already happened. He divided his family. And he made a human shield out of Bilhah and Zilpah and their kids, and he put them out front. You know, if somebody's going to get killed, you're going to get killed first. Then he got Leah and her kids and said, listen, if they get through that shield, you know, they got to kill you second. And he made a human shield out of his entire family so that Rachel and Joseph could be protected. Now, if you are one of his other wives, if you are one of his other children, what does that say to you? Huh? I believe that demonstration of favoritism ignited some serious jealousy and hate toward Rachel and Joseph. But they survived it. Esau actually was coming in peace. And then a few years later, Rachel conceived again. And on the night that they had waited on, this joyous night, a celebration when a child was going to be born, Rachel gave birth to a second son. They named him Benjamin. But she died moments after giving birth. Joseph lost his mother. Now he's living at home, where I'm sure all 3 of the other wives despised him. I know the 10 boys hated him. Only one person in the world other than his young brother gave a hoot about him. His daddy. Now when he was 17 years old, he was helping tend the flocks, working, not with his brothers who hated him, but working for his brothers. And they were often doing some rotten stuff. And Joseph felt compelled that Dad needs to know. Now, I don't think he's just trying to rat him out to get him in trouble. I think he's acting responsibly. I think he's looking at it like this. The things they're doing perhaps were costing Jacob money. Or maybe they were, endangering his reputation and integrity. And Joseph felt compelled. He went to his dad and told him. How do you think the boys reacted to that? What did you think when your brother and sister ratted you out? Huh? Did you hug them? Did you pat them on the back and say, hey, I know you were doing the right thing? No. And then Jacob made this coat. And he didn't make 11 coats or 12 coats. He made one coat. And he gave it to Joseph as an expression of his love, that you are my favorite. Can you just think about how those boys would feel when Joseph would put on that coat and go sporting around the house, you know? Sitting there eating some Cheetos, watching the ball game, he got on his coat, the brothers see that coat, you know, we just read it. You know what the Bible said? The Bible said they hated it. They hated it because his father loved them most. And as we will just see in this story, Jacob didn't love his 10 oldest sons at all. Now, what do we learn in this story? I want us to pause here for a couple of reasons, because first, there's something I want you to notice, and second, there's something I want to make sure you learn. First, I want you to notice that Joseph and his 10 older brothers were raised in a dysfunctional family. Listen carefully to me. I'm assuming that most of you took note of the fact that Jacob's family was a mess. As a matter of fact, some of you may have thought, I only thought my family was messed up. All the classic symptoms of dysfunction were easily found in Jacob's family. Symptoms such as division, rivalry, and deceit. Symptoms such as hatred, jealousy, and hypocrisy. Symptoms such as favoritism, fault-finding, and unhappiness. And of course, there was drama. Seemed to be constant drama. So having taken note of the fact that Joseph and his 10 older brothers were raised in a dysfunctional home, here's what I want you to learn. You ready? We don't have to be the product of our past. Are you getting that? Because I'm telling you, God sent me here this morning to tell you that. We do not have to be the product of our past. We can be, but we don't have to be. Joseph's 10 older brothers seem to be the products of a very dysfunctional family. At this point in our story, we already know that Joseph's 10 older brothers were messed up. They were indeed a product of their past. If we had read every word from the Bible about their story up to this point, we would have learned that Reuben, the oldest brother, had sex with one of Jacob's wives. Huh? 2 other brothers, Simeon and Levi, killed every man and boy in the city of Shechem. Eventually, all the other brothers, all the 10 brothers, looted the city of Shechem and turned all the women and girls into slaves. As we continue the story of Joseph, we will quickly see that it only gets worse. Judah had sex with his daughter-in-law. They had a child together. The boys lied, cheated, stole, and swindled their way through life. They were immoral, irresponsible, ungodly, self-centered, cold-hearted, lying, murdering, sexual deviants. I guess it'd be safe to say they turned out bad. Huh? Joseph, however, was the polar opposite of his 10 older brothers. At this point in the story, we already see that he's a young man of integrity. And he was very responsible. As we go deeper into his story, we will see that he was compassionate, humble, kind, unselfish, persevering, loyal, and wise beyond his years. He was a man of great faith and made a positive difference wherever he went. Joseph experienced great success in life. I think it'd be safe to say that he turned out good. From his life, we learn a great lesson. We don't have to be the product of our past. We can turn out good, even if our past was bad. In spite of a dysfunctional upbringing, we can be emotionally healthy, mentally well-adjusted, and spiritually strong. Just because our family was messed up doesn't mean that we have to be messed up. We can have meaningful relationships, experience success, and make a positive difference, no matter what happened or no matter what didn't happen to us in the past. Here's what I'm saying. We can overcome the damage of dysfunction. How, you ask? Great question. Here's my answer. Find your value through the eyes of your Father. To overcome the damage of dysfunction, we must find our value through the eyes of our Father. Now let me explain. In spite of the fact that they were all raised in the same home, Joseph and his 10 older brothers turned out differently. What do you think made the difference? In my opinion, love made the difference. Jacob loved Joseph in such a way that Joseph knew it. On the other hand, Joseph's 10 half-brothers had to doubt they were loved at all. Jacob demonstrated his love for Joseph with a gift. Beautiful robe. He never did that for the 10. The robe was special because of the message it sent. The robe identified Joseph as the firstborn. Think about this. He was 11th, but this identified him as the firstborn, which meant that Joseph stood to inherit position, power, and fortune. So if Jacob was considering Joseph as the firstborn, what did that say to the 10 older brothers? It said you didn't count. It's as though they never existed. In another conversation I found in the Bible, Jacob said to his 10 older sons, my wife, singular, which is saying your mothers didn't count. My wife, singular, had 2 sons. One is gone, Joseph, and I only got 1 son left, speaking of Benjamin. How do you suppose that made the boys feel? I'm sure it didn't make them feel loved or valued. By withholding love from his 10 older sons, Jacob stole something from them. He stole their sense of self-worth. The only conclusion the boys could have reached is that they were worthless. So they gladly demonstrated that in their behavior. They lived like worthless men. They were the products of their past. Joseph, however, knew that he was loved. He was sure of it. How do you think that made him feel? He felt valued. By loving Joseph, Jacob had given him an incredible gift. He gave him a healthy sense of self-worth. Joseph knew that he was valuable, and he lived like it. All of his life, in every situation, Joseph added value because he saw himself as valuable. Listen to this. One person valued Joseph, and it enabled him to be a fully functional human being in spite of his dysfunctional past. If you were raised in a dysfunctional family, or if your current family is dysfunctional, it is very likely that someone has stolen your sense of self-worth. They did something, or they didn't do something. They said something, or they didn't say something that has left you feeling worthless. Here's the danger in that. If you believe that you don't count, you are likely to live like someone who is no count. You will be the product of your past. To overcome the damage of dysfunction, you've got to find your true value. Please listen carefully to me. To overcome the damage of dysfunction, you've got to find your true value, because the truth is you do count. And Ronnie, how do you do that? Stop determining your worth by looking at yourself through the eyes of someone who doesn't or someone who didn't value you. Stop doing that. And start finding your value by looking at yourself through the eyes of your Father. You say, Ronnie, it was my father who stole my sense of self-worth. I understand that. But I'm not talking about your Heavenly Father. I'm talking about your Heavenly Father. If you want to know your true worth, look at yourself through the eyes of your Heavenly Father. Think about how much you are worth to Him. He created you. You're no accident. He created you, and in His eyes, you are His masterpiece. He set his affection on you before you were ever born, and he's watched over you your entire life. He chose you long before you ever chose him. He gave up his own son so that the two of you could know each other. He was looking for you before you ever thought of looking for him. He's crazy in love with you. His love for you is unfailing, unconditional, and eternal. In God's eyes, you're somebody. Somebody special. Somebody of incredible value. Overcoming the damage of dysfunction begins when you recognize just how valuable you really are. And to do that, you're going to have to start looking at yourself through the eyes of your Heavenly Father. Let me illustrate what I'm talking about. I want to tell you a story that I don't want to tell you, but I'm compelled to tell you. I don't want to show any disrespect to either of my parents because I love them. But I was raised in a dysfunctional home. In the midst of all the dysfunction, there was one thing I was certain of. I was certain that my mother loved me because she demonstrated through things she did, sacrifices she made. However, I concluded that my dad didn't care much for me. That I didn't have a lot of value in his eyes. Through things, I'm not going to go into detail, but things said, things not said, things done, things left undone. My conclusion was, he didn't think much of me. I didn't really realize the damage that dysfunction had on me until I was an adult. As an adult, there were 3 adjectives you could describe me with. Other than handsome and intelligent, there are a lot of them. Let me pick 3. That didn't know how to say it, so just let me pick 3. Driven. I couldn't do it enough. I had annual goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals. I had notebooks full of strategic plans of every step and timelines so that I could achieve these goals. I couldn't do it in life. The second adjective was perfectionistic. I couldn't do anything well enough. Everything I did, I was really aspiring to do it perfectly. The third adjective was competitive, not in a healthy sense, but a very unhealthy sense. I lived my life competing with everybody, even teammates. My goal was to be the best, period. And it took me a while to recognize these weren't virtues. These were character flaws. And they were costing me peace, and they were costing me happiness, and they were costing me relationships. I never really put 2 and 2 together that these were the results of dysfunction until I was serving here at Lower Corner Church. And I read a book called Wild at Heart. Has anybody ever read that book? Anybody ever read that book? And you ought to read that book. Now, a portion of the book was devoted to helping men overcome the wounds inflicted upon them by their fathers. And as I'm reading that, light bulb overhead, I got it. The drivenness, the perfectionism, the competitiveness. You know why I was that way? I'm trying to prove something, man. At that moment, I realized I'm geared, and I'm living my life to prove something. You know what I'm trying to prove? That I'm worth something. You know who I was trying to prove it to? My dad. If I can do it enough, if I can do well enough, if I can finish on the top of the heap, maybe my dad will recognize that I have some value. A real turning point in my dysfunction was on Father's Day of the year 2000. We invited my father over for Father's Day lunch, and Lynn fixed him his favorite meal. We ate together. Everything seemed to be fine. And when Dad got to leave, he walked to the door, he turned, and he proceeded to say some very hurtful things to Lynn, then to Jonathan, and to me. He turned and walked out the door. Now we sit there in stunned silence. And I finally got up and got our car keys, and I looked at Lynn, and I apologized for his behavior, and I apologized to Jonathan. And I got in my car and I started driving on Highway 11, crying. I'm not talking about tears trickling down my cheek. I'm talking about wailing in pain. Because I realized something that day. I can't do enough, and I can't do it well enough, that I'm ever going to have any value in his eyes. And I'm going up the road, and I experienced something that was a defining moment in my life. It was one of those moments where God said something and you knew it was Him. And you knew just what He said. He said, I'm your Father. And I will do everything for you that you ever wanted Him to do, and then some. But here's what you got to do. You got to stop looking at yourself through your earthly father's eyes in order to determine of what value you are. And you got to start looking at yourself through my eyes to determine what value you are. This is what he said. You don't have to earn my affection or my approval. You've already got it. You don't have to prove to me of what value you are. I've already proven as I gave my son dying on the cross. I've already proven how valuable you are to me. So you let me be your father. Because that's what I am. It was a slow process for me to change. But I changed. I started looking to Him to determine my value. That was 19 years ago. You ask, are you healed? No. Are you healing? Rather nicely. People used to describe me with this word. He's intense. They'd say that in front of me. He is intense. Driven, perfectionistic, competitive. He's intense. People don't say that much about me anymore. I'm not intense anymore. You know what? I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. The only one that really matters thinks I'm great. Thinks I'm special. Here's what I'm saying. Some of you are suffering from dysfunction. It damaged you. You are a product of your past in some way. You don't have to be a prisoner. You don't have to let that dictate to you what you're like and what you do in this life. Something about your past, it may have not been an upbringing, it may have been a previous marriage, maybe the marriage you're in. Someone took your value. And you're never going to overcome your dysfunctional past until you get your value back. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to find your value through the eyes of your Heavenly Father. And when you do, you'll overcome the damage of dysfunction. Let's pray. Father, I'm talking to some people who are struggling with some stuff. We don't want to pass the buck off on anybody and blame anybody. But the truth is, the dysfunctional past is going to create some damage at the moment if we let it. It's going to create some problems that we carry with us through the rest of our life if we're not careful. There's somebody here, and I'm praying they have that light bulb moment where the two and two comes together and they realize, that's it. That's what he's talking about. That's what I'm going through. I want you to set them free this morning, Lord. I don't want them to leave here feeling that they've got to measure up. I want them to understand that with you, they already measure up. I don't know who it is that stole their value, but I want them to stop looking at themselves through their eyes and start looking at themselves through your eyes. I pray that as they do, Lord, today might begin a journey to health and wholeness and happiness and freedom from their past.